state enslaves us, whether it's via taxation or even running services.
When I hear you, it makes me think of a sort of philosophical element to our society that we've lost, really. The discussion of values, things outside of the immediacy of our everyday lives. We're not having those conversations anymore. What do we want out of our lives? What should we be pursuing alongside our jobs and alongside our families? These are things that tend to come about a lot when we belong to religions. Is this idea of a covenantal society a way of, is it religion by the back door?
Well, if you say religion is about not harming other people, building trusting relationships, actually enhancing other people's lives, it doesn't matter what you call it. No one can argue that that's a way to behave, and therefore it doesn't matter what you call it. It's what we all want to achieve. But the point you make is very valid, that there's not enough dialogue. We're connecting, we're building a relationship via the conversation, which is covenantal. We're not in a transaction. We're trying to develop each other's ideas, and there's not enough dialogue. I hate sitting on panels with four people, which happens all the time, where each of the four people is actually talking a completely different language. We've all been there. There's very little dialogue in these circumstances. There's contractual fighting and competing. So what we have here is a conversation between two people that want to actually understand how there's another model that can actually change the world.
That's right. We're trying to find common ground as well. We're trying to find an understanding.
Correct. We're trying to, and it's mutual. Yeah, we're trying to work together, and that is missing because we're so focused on survival of the fittest and beating everybody else and winning that we forget that what we actually need, as Maslow says, we need the physiological needs. We need food. We need security. We then need loving relationships, and those don't have to be only the family. You can extend from the family to the community to the nation. So we're not doing enough in actually dialogue, and dialogue builds relationships.
So I know you have this theory of the five masters. Tell me a little bit about that. How would you remodel these forces?
Okay, so I've told you about the 10 purposes. Now, what is standing in the way of those 10 purposes is five masters that enslave us, that mean we're not free. And therefore, we can't achieve those 10 purposes. So, for example, the state. The state is centralized. The state takes decision-making away from each of us. Even just the concept of taxation is taking money away from me, which means I'm not making that decision. The state is, and the state's remote. What the state has to start to recognize is it mustn't enslave people. There's a role there for the state, but the way I like to think about it is almost the referee. You can't both be a referee and hold people to account and also be a team, because that obviously creates a conflict. But the state hasn't got that idea clear. And what it does is it gets mixed up. And COVID is an example of that, where the state centralizes control and actually means that people can't have meaningful lives because decisions are not made by, we see it with the kids that they want to make decisions. And if you're not making decisions, are you living? You almost become a machine, you become a cog in a machine. Which means you're not living a meaningful life. So the state has to let go. Now, that's not communism, because communism and socialism is a big state which controls, and it's not capitalism, which also controls. Whatever we effectively are employed by businesses. Many people are leaving meaningless lives. They come to work, they're not bringing their whole self to work. They're not actually able to express the view. The issues in the news at the moment where people aren't able to express their views. We are human beings, and we have to recognise that. But the state enslaves us, whether it's via taxation or even running services. We can come on to that if you'd like to talk about how we could run things differently. But the state should not be actually doing anything. It should be the visionary. It's an exciting role for the state, but they've got to let go. They've got to create the vision and the measures and accountability to ensure that things are actually delivered in the way of the vision, but they shouldn't be actually doing the actual delivery. They're not the executives. They should be the visionaries and not the chief executives of businesses.
Okay, so you've got this vision of a covenantal approach, sort of remodeling society,
Yeah.
restructuring society. There have been good ideas in the past before. Let's look at proportional representation. Let's look at the green revolution. We're currently in a climate crisis or a climate catastrophe. No one's doing enough. No one's going to embrace this idea. How do you see it coming about?
Democracy, put very simply, because I think what we've got is people are intelligent, but politicians and businesses actually don't tell them the truth. So if you make it clear to people, for example, that debt is a choice, in the model that I describe, you waive debt on a cyclical basis, which means that nobody needs a mortgage beyond 7 years. So therefore, what I'm proposing, which I think is likely to happen anyway, so I think the currencies are likely to collapse. We're seeing the starting of it now. What then happens is, to me, you have to start again with a new currency, a digital currency. Why a digital currency? Because you have visibility. Cash means that there's no accountability. What's actually going on? So you need to have visibility so that people have a voice and they actually can be heard. So once you've actually got visibility, you can then start to build a completely new set of values, which starts again. And then you start to tell people, you don't have to have a mortgage. I.e., it's an assumption that we've made. It's crazy, but you don't need a mortgage. And if you put that democratically to people, a choice of either continuing with the status quo, with the banks making more and more money, everyone else suffering, and let's bail them out again and do it yet again, or a new system based around a digital currency with debt forgiveness built in. You don't need a mortgage. You don't need to be serving the bank or serving the state. Once it's put to people, they will vote democratically for it because it's a no-brainer. The 5% continue to accumulate wealth. The 95% are left behind. They will vote, but the trouble is it's not put to the people in those simple terms. So what I'm saying is, assuming the collapse happens soon, actually democratically, it shouldn't be anybody acting behind closed doors that just decides the state are going to continue with this enslavement. They're going to continue to force people to have huge amounts of debt. No, give people the choice. And democratically, if people say we don't want the debt, we want a new system of currencies with a new set of values where we work together, democracy will work. So the key is to put it to the people.